Justin Bieber, girl, I need you to sit down for this one because the way his name is getting dragged back into the spotlight right now, it's not even about music. It's not even about Coachella. It's something way deeper and honestly a little unsettling. So here's what people have been whispering, okay? Justin Bieber popping back up publicly has allegedly made Sean Diddy Combs nervous, like actually nervous, and not just, oh, he might say something messy nervous. People are saying Diddy is worried Justin might expose something. Yeah, that kind of worried. Now listen, I'm not saying everything online is true because you already know how the internet loves to run wild, but there's been talk about a leaked audio clip floating around that supposedly sounds like Diddy being aggressive toward Justin Bieber. And the way people are reacting to it, it's like suddenly all these old clips, old interviews, old moments are being rewatched with a completely different lens. And that's where it gets interesting. Because when you go back and actually listen to Justin Bieber speak, especially in those older interviews, it doesn't hit the same anymore. Like there's this one interview where Justin is sitting there smiling, joking, being his usual charming self. But when he's asked what advice he would give his 15-year-old self, the whole vibe shifts. He literally says he was young, innocent, and trusted everyone. And girl, that right there, that's the part that sticks because Justin Bieber wasn't just some random kid. He was a teenager, suddenly surrounded by powerful adults, big names, people who had control, influence, access. And he openly said that being that innocent in that kind of industry, not safe. He said people take advantage of vulnerability. That's his own words. And when you hear that now, knowing everything that's being alleged around Diddy, it just hits different. And then people started connecting it to that whole 48 hours with Diddy situation. You remember that clip? Justin Bieber is literally 15 years old and Diddy is joking about having custody of him for 48 hours, saying they're doing things they can't disclose, calling it a 15-year-old's dream. And Justin's just there kind of going along with it, smiling, not really questioning anything. But when you rewatch it now, it feels off. Like, why is a grown man talking like that about a teenager? And the thing is, back then, nobody really questioned it. People just laughed it off as industry bonding, mentorship, whatever you want to call it. But now people are like, wait a second, that wasn't normal. Even Justin Bieber himself later started talking about how he had to build walls, how he stopped trusting people, how he felt like he lost parts of his personality because he didn't know who was real anymore. That's not just famous hard talk. That's someone who went through something that changed how they see people completely. And it wasn't just behind closed doors either. That's the part that makes it even crazier. A lot of this stuff was happening right in front of everyone. On TV, on stage, in interviews, you had grown celebrities making him visibly uncomfortable, touching him, kissing him, making comments that a 15 or 16-year-old should never have to deal with. And Justin would literally say, I'm uncomfortable. He said it out loud multiple times and nobody stepped in. Like, imagine being that young in that position and feeling like you can't say no properly because these are powerful people. That's the environment Justin Bieber was in. And then you have voices like Joe Budden coming out years later saying watching those clips now actually makes him sick, saying it looks disturbing, saying it wasn't funny at all. And honestly, when you go back and watch them with that mindset, you kind of see what he means because it's not just one moment. It's a pattern. It's different people, different situations, but the same energy. Justin being young, Justin being uncomfortable, Justin trying to laugh it off while clearly not okay. And that's where people start asking bigger questions. Not just about Diddy, but about the entire environment Justin Bieber grew up in. Because when you've got a teenager surrounded by power, money, influence, and zero real protection, things can go wrong fast. And sometimes they don't even look wrong until years later. Now, here's where it gets even more layered. There are people close to the industry saying that Justin's behavior during certain phases of his life, the partying, the reckless decisions, the sudden changes might not have come out of nowhere. That kind of shift usually comes from something. And the word people keep throwing around, trauma. And I'm not saying what happened or didn't happen. Nobody has confirmed anything directly linking Justin Bieber to specific accusations against Diddy. But what is confirmed is Justin's own words. He trusted people. He got burned. He had to change. And when you look at it like that, it stops being just gossip. It starts feeling like a story about a kid who was put into a world he didn't fully understand, surrounded by people who maybe didn't always have his best intentions. And now that Diddy is dealing with legal issues, prison time, and possibly even getting out earlier than expected, people are wondering what happens next. And that's where the conversation starts getting even heavier, because now people aren't just looking back, they're looking forward too. Like, okay, if Sean Diddy Combs actually gets out earlier than expected, what does that mean for everyone connected to him? What does that mean for someone like Justin Bieber, who was around him at such a young age? Because let's not ignore this part. Diddy's legal situation right now isn't small. His lawyers are literally trying to reduce his sentence, arguing that what he got was too harsh compared to similar cases. And yes, technically he was cleared of some of the more serious charges, but he was still convicted on others. He's currently expected to be out in 2028. But if that gets shortened, that changes everything in people's minds. And that's exactly why names like Jaguar Wright keep popping up in these conversations. She straight up said, even if Diddy walks out tomorrow, nothing really changes. The industry stays the same. The same power structure is the same hidden dynamics, the same messy system that nobody fully understands from the outside. And honestly, that's the part that kind of sticks with you, because when you zoom out, this stops being about just one person. It becomes about a whole environment, an environment where young artists come in wide-eyed, talented, trusting, and then slowly learn that not everyone around them has pure intentions. And that's why people keep circling back to Justin Bieber's story. Not because he confirmed anything about Diddy specifically, but because his experiences match the pattern people are starting to recognize. He talked about feeling controlled. He talked about needing distance from people he once trusted. He even explained how hard it was for him to say no to people he cared about because he didn't want to disappoint them. Now think about that for a second. A teenager in an industry full of powerful adults feeling like he can't say no. That alone says a lot. And then you have insiders like Gene Deal coming out and basically saying, look, a lot of what's being talked about isn't confirmed, but the fact that these conversations even exist shows how much the narrative has shifted. He admitted himself that most of it is still in that gray area. Rumors, speculation, things people have heard but can't fully prove. But here's the thing, when stories keep coming up from different directions, even if they're not confirmed, people start paying attention, especially when they line up with what someone like Justin Bieber has already hinted at in his own words. And then there's another layer people are whispering about blackmail. Yeah, I know it sounds like something straight out of a movie, but multiple voices have suggested that Diddy might have had leverage over certain people in the industry. Recordings, secrets, things that could keep people quiet. Again, nothing confirmed, but the idea alone, it adds tension to everything. Because if you think about it, if someone did have that kind of power, it would explain why so many people stayed silent for so long, why certain things were ignored, why uncomfortable moments were brushed off as jokes. And then you hear conversations like the ones involving TK Kirkland, where he starts talking about Diddy's reputation, not just in business, but personally, the way he moved, the way he interacted with people, even going after women connected to other men in the industry. Crossing lines that in most circles people wouldn't cross out of basic respect. And when someone consistently ignores boundaries like that, it builds a certain image over time. It makes people question what else might have been happening behind the scenes. Now, bring it back to Justin Bieber again. A 15-year-old kid placed into that kind of environment, surrounded by people who operate like that. You start to understand why he later said he had to put up walls, why he struggled with trust, why he went through phases where he seemed lost. Because those changes don't just happen randomly. They usually come from experiences that shift how you see the world. And even public figures like Usher have been dragged into these conversations, with people revisiting old connections, old mentorship stories, trying to piece together what the industry really looked like back then. Again, nothing confirmed, but the fact that people are questioning everything now, that's new. It's like the entire timeline is being re-examined, every clip, every interview, every interaction. And suddenly, moments that once looked harmless now feel uncomfortable. And honestly, one of the most disturbing parts, a lot of it was happening in plain sight. Justin being touched on stage Justin being asked inappropriate questions on live radio, Justin visibly trying to redirect conversations because he didn't feel okay. And people laughed, people clapped, people moved on. Nobody stopped and said, wait, he's a kid. And now, years later, people are finally looking back and realizing that shouldn't have been normal. And now the conversation turns into something even bigger, because once people start pulling on one thread, everything else starts coming loose too. And that's exactly what's happening here. It's not just about Justin Bieber anymore. It's about the entire system he grew up in. The kind of system where, according to multiple voices, things can look glamorous on the outside, but feel completely different behind the scenes. You've got people like Jaguar Wright saying straight up that even if Sean Diddy Combs walks free tomorrow, nothing really changes. The industry stays messy, the same power circles stay in place, and the same patterns keep repeating. And honestly, when you hear that, it makes you look at Justin's story in a different way, because maybe what he experienced wasn't some isolated situation. Maybe it was part of a much bigger culture, and that's where things get uncomfortable, because people start asking questions nobody really wanted to ask before. Like, how many young artists went through something similar? How many of them smiled through interviews, laughed things off, acted like everything was fine while actually dealing with things they didn't even fully understand at the time? Because Justin Bieber literally said it himself. He didn't understand everything when he was younger. He trusted people. He thought everyone around him was on his side. And then over time, that trust got broken. That's not gossip. That's his own reflection. And when you combine that with everything else being discussed right now, it paints a picture that's hard to ignore. Not a confirmed story with clear answers, but a pattern of young talent being placed into powerful environments where boundaries aren't always respected and where speaking up isn't always easy. Even the idea of these alleged recordings floating around, whether they're real or not, adds to that tension, because if there's even a chance that something like that exists, it explains why so many people would stay quiet, why certain names never come forward, why everything feels like it's sitting just below the surface but never fully breaking out. And then you hear people like Gene Deal saying, look, we don't know what's real and what's not yet. A lot of this is still unverified. And he's right. That part matters, because at the end of the day, serious claims need real proof. Without that, everything stays in that gray zone. But here's the thing, even without confirmed details, Justin Bieber's story still stands on its own. A teenager who entered the industry with pure excitement, who ended up feeling like he had to protect himself from the very people around him. That's not something you just ignore. And when people talk about his past behavior, the partying, the reckless phase, the moments where he seemed completely off track, it starts to look less like celebrity gone wild and more like someone trying to deal with something internally. Because that kind of shift usually comes from somewhere. And honestly, one of the most telling parts of all of this is how Justin Bieber eventually pulled himself out of it. He started setting boundaries. He started distancing himself from certain people. He leaned into his personal growth, his beliefs, trying to rebuild himself in a way that felt real again. That doesn't happen unless something forces you to change. So when people now say that Sean Diddy Combs might be worried about Justin speaking out, it's not just about one secret or one moment, it's about everything Justin represents. He's one of the few people who was there, who lived through that era at such a young age, and who actually has a voice big enough to be heard if he ever decided to say more. But at the same time, Justin Bieber has never come out and directly accused Diddy of anything specific. And that's important to remember, because right now, a lot of this is still speculation, people connecting dots, revisiting old clips, trying to understand something that was never fully explained. So the real question isn't just what happened, it's bigger than that. It's what kind of environment creates stories like this in the first place, and why did it take so many years for people to even start questioning it? Because when you really think about it, the most uncomfortable part isn't what might have happened behind closed doors. It's what was happening right in front of everyone and still got ignored. And now, years later, people are finally looking back, connecting those moments, and realizing that what once